People make purchases and are happy with their purchases when they're confident you can solve an internal pressure they're feeling. I'm going to talk about what internal pressure is, why I think it's important, and how I create it with prospects that I speak to sell high ticket products and services. But if you're new to this channel, it's nice to meet you. I'm Ty. I've consulted and helped hundreds of closers and entrepreneurs build better sales teams, raise their close rates. And I just love talking about what's worked for me. Hopefully something will work for you as well. So what the heck am I talking about? What is this internal pressure? From what I've seen, there's really two types of sale. One where you push the prospect to a product and another where you kind of pull them towards it. Now I've sold low ticket products door to door, at events, B2B, and those are probably the best settings for more of a push approach because it's kind of like a quick sale. You're quickly putting external pressure to help them make a fast decision on something that doesn't really have much downside if it doesn't work out because it's not that expensive. For example, I used to do this event where we sold car wax at, car shows, gas stations. The wax was like $12 a bottle, and we would go up to people while they were pumping gas or, when they were walking around the show and ask if we could give them a demonstration of what the product could do. We would clean their car and really just pitch them, convince them to buy as much as possible, like a pack of them for 50 to 70 bucks. And if for whatever reason they bought like $12 to $50 worth and decided later that they weren't going to use it or didn't want it, not that big of a deal. It's just 12 bucks. They could, even just gift it to a friend. At the end of the day, the product worked. It was really good. So, if they just decided, hey, I don't actually clean my car that often, I'm not going to use this, wasn't too big of a problem. Again, for low ticket, low risk products, I've seen just selling with a bunch of external pressure work just fine. And where I started to learn more that this type of sale really doesn't work and kind of just pisses people off is when you jump into high ticket sales. I've sold products now, anywhere ranging from 3,000 to 45,000 plus. And for what I've seen, this is where you need more internal pressure to make the sale and ultimately just make sure the sale sticks long term. Like if you push someone into a $10,000 product and they aren't really convinced internally that this is what they need, this is the best thing for them, you're just going to end up with a bunch of angry customers that are wanting a refund anyway, and it's just going to turn into this huge headache. But I guess what I wanted to talk about today was how do we create that internal pressure? How do we make prospects want to find the solution to their problems, want to be urgent, want to finally get out of their situation and do something that's actually going to help them take steps towards achieving their goals? Well, based on taking a bunch of calls and reviewing a bunch of calls, it comes down to probing. I've seen a lot of people struggle with probing, but how I've made it really, really simple for myself is just identifying that probing is just, two things: getting them to clarify their problems and really just getting them to explain the defined details of the problem so you both have a full understanding of where they are and why they no longer want to be there. But first, you really have to understand why probe? Why do we probe in the first place? What's the point? I've seen what it really helps do is, one, bring the problem to the forefront of their mind and really just have it sit there long enough so that they feel a strong urge to do something about it. I've noticed that the biggest difference in whether you're able to elicit emotions during conversations is like the duration you spend talking about that thing, that emotional thing, that thing they don't like, that thing they love, or that thing they hate, whatever the emotion is. It's the duration I've seen. For example, if there's a really sad movie that always makes you cry, you probably wouldn't cry just like reading the notes about what the movie was about, but you would cry actually watching the movie because you were sitting there experiencing it. You were in it for a long time. You felt the music and everything influenced you. And I always ask people that I'm explaining this to, like, think of a person you ever spoke to, or even yourself when you're telling a story about something that made you really sad or a really difficult time in your life. The longer you spend telling that story, the more emotional you get, whether you break down in tears by the end of it after just explaining everything about that problem, or you're telling a story about something that made you really, really mad, and by the end of telling that story, you're physically in that moment a little bit more angry. The emotions start to come out when you're talking about something over time, and especially if that story is something that's made you sad in the past or something that is sad, you will feel that emotion, whatever it is. I personally just like to call it time under tension. And, it's kind of like when you're in the gym. Most people, they can, curl 10 pounds, right? Imagine if I said, okay, curl 10 pounds for 10 reps. You'd probably bang it out really simply. Most people would. Now, imagine if I said, okay, curl 10 pounds for 10 reps, but each rep has to take 10 minutes to finish. So you had to literally slowly curl. And at the end of 10 minutes, that's one rep. One more, slowly curl. At the end of 10 minutes, that's 2 reps. that would probably be a lot harder by the time you got to the 10th rep than if you just did it fast. And the only difference isn't the weight, isn't the reps, it was time under tension. It's because you spent more time in that situation. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to probing and making them tell stories or making them clarify or give you more details on the situation they no longer want to be in and why they need the product that you have or the service that you have that's going to help them make a change in their life, whether it's a life change, whether it's a business change, whether it's a fitness or health change, whatever that change is. Making them spend more time discussing why they don't like it, why they don't want to be there, is going to make them feel the urge to want to get out of it even more. That's one reason. The next thing I've seen probing help a lot in is building trust in the solutions you give and just building trust in your advice overall. They need to know that you know everything about their situation so they can trust your solution. And the example I usually give for this is the therapist versus the random guy on the street. So let's say there was a guy on the street and there was your dating coach that you just hired. And one day you were walking down the street and, the guy said, "Hey, how's everything going?" And you're like, "Good." And he said, "Oh, nice. How's everything going in your dating life?" And you said, "It's not that good." And he just looked at you and said, "Oh, probably because you're not very confident when you're speaking to girls and actually asking them out on dates. You seem like you're confident when you're going through the conversation, but as soon as things start to get real and you actually want to ask them to go on a date with you, you start to fluster things up and you get all weird and that kind of turns them off. And now you don't actually end up securing any dates for yourself. I think that's what's going on in your dating life." What would you think? What would you say to that? Chances are you'd be like, "What does this guy know? This guy doesn't know me. He doesn't know my situation. He doesn't know anything. He's just guessing." Like, I don't believe you. You have no right to tell me that. Screw off, right? Now, on the flip side, imagine if you hired the dating coach and you spent hours talking to this dating coach, telling them about every experience you've had, every encounter with women you've had, every, time you've asked a girl out, exactly what happened, every single detail about it. You explained everything you possibly could about that problem. And you had full confidence in knowing that the dating coach knew everything. You're like, "Okay, this is a dating coach. He knows everything about my situation. What do you think I should do, dating coach?" And he says the same thing. He says, "I think you're really confident in having normal conversation with them. And the times that you lose confidence and you get all flustered is when you're asking for the actual date. How would you take that feedback?" You'd probably be more inclined to listen. You'd probably be like, "You know what? This guy probably knows what he's talking about." It's a combination of two things. It's one, seeing that dating coach as the authority on the subject matter. So, okay, this guy knows everything about dating. That's one piece to the puzzle. Great. Second piece is this guy now knows everything about my specific situation. When those two things combine, it's like he knows he's an authority on the subject and he knows everything about my situation. Therefore, his advice is probably right. Versus the guy on the street who didn't really know much. And that's why I see a lot of people from, when I'm reviewing their calls and, just reviewing my own past calls, I've seen a lot of them fail when they don't get deep enough and don't get enough details. And there's just this lack of trust there because they're the guy on the street. They're asking a couple shallow questions, not really challenging the prospect to give them more details and just allowing their fluffy answers to go by in the conversations. And then when they get to the end of it, they say, "Hey, this is what I think is best for you." And in the back of that mind, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, the prospect's like, "Something feels off. I don't know if I should trust this. I don't know if I should listen." Or they're like, how do you know that's really what's best? Why should I listen to this person? Or they're even thinking like, there's something I held back from them. There's something I didn't tell them. Would their advice be different if they knew this detail I didn't actually give them? This person can't possibly give me the 100% best advice because I didn't tell them these things about me yet. So when you combine those two things though, of authority and full knowledge on my specific situation, authority and specifics, it's really, really easy for the prospect to trust you, and it's really, really easy for them to comfortably move forward with whatever solutions you give. Try it out. I think if you continuously ask for clarification, it makes a huge difference by the time you get to the end of the call. I've always seen that the pain is in the details. Time under tension brings it out. Getting clarification builds the trust. Now, to make this super, super easy, I had to change the way I thought about the conversations I was having. I took my mind off the script, off trying to just sell, and I just focused on their reason for change. When I was having conversations with people, just what is this person's reason for change? Why do they no longer want to be in the current situation they're in? That's all I focused on. I listened to what they were actually saying, and I asked questions to understand more about the last thing they just said, which continuously allowed me to get deeper and deeper and deeper into their situation, into their reason for change. Personality-wise, I try to be hyper curious about everything and almost have this, curious, sometimes innocently confused and skeptical tonality towards them. Most salespeople I've come across have this over-energetic, really approval-seeking tone when they speak, and I've seen it kill authority in sales calls. Personally, I've seen from just trial and error that a more skeptical tone will naturally draw out people's want to defend what they're saying. I mean, it's just human nature. And when you're skeptically asking them about why they even want to get out of their situation, why do they want a solution like this in the first place? Why not just make do with what you've got and stay where you are and continue with whatever it is going on? They end up defending their own reason for change and defending their reason to buy ultimately. And that puts them in a way deeper buying state than you just saying, hey, you should buy, ever would. Honestly, I've seen getting to the core of the question, why do you want to change, will cause the deepest feeling of pain, and asking enough questions around it will cause them to sit in it long enough to want to do something about it. So you want to ask the who, the what, the why, the where, the how long, the how did that affect, the what did you do about it, the how did that go. And after they think about it for so long, thinking about how bad it is, how badly they want to get out of it, when you finally give them that feeling of relief by saying, hey, this is what will solve the problem and make all that pain go away, this is the solution, they'll be primed and ready to just take the next step. They'll be begging for the next step. But hey, I could be crazy. That's just what I've seen after helping hundreds of people sell millions of dollars in products and services. I could be totally wrong, but you give it a shot. Let me know what your thoughts are.